we ignore the science of this, right, the problem still persists that scientists can't figure out where this water is just dumping out, right?
They need to just dump some massive quantities of oil down and then just see where the oil slick pops up.
Well, but I mean, that's the problem, right, is that they've done that with other things that are less harmful, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dyes that are, I guess ostensibly don't harm, or ping pong balls, things that, particularly if you were out in the middle of Lake Superior and you're like, wow, there's a ping pong ball, or like there's a couple ping pong balls, you'd probably mention it to somebody and they'd be like, yeah, this is that. Even if it were by some, like miracle, underground lava tube that went underground and it didn't even dump out on the shores, right? It dumped out like in the middle of Lake Superior. If you dump a bunch of dye or ping pong balls or anything like that, and it's flowing down this river and it just pops out in the middle of Lake Superior, people are going to report things like that.
Well, and the weird thing is, why hasn't this thing plugged up?
Right.
Yeah, they're stuffing so much crap down it. You think it'd be plugged up?
Yeah, you would think that just natural things would plug it up eventually.
You know what I don't understand why they're not doing is, you could divert that water and let that thing empty out and then just head on down there with the rope and see what's going on.
I mean, that's kind of my thing right now, right? There's a YouTube video that we should link to of somebody who went like part of the way down into this kettle and kind of videotaped what's going on, and you can see the river hits and it hits on the rock and then it flows down. It just kind of looks like one of those things where I know it's crazy dangerous empirically in my head that it would be a dumb idea for anybody to just like walk down that thing. But I just want to jump down that thing and ride it out like a stupid log ride, like Splash Mountain.
Hope you can hold
right?
your breath, yeah.
And just see what is going on down there. It's just so surprising with like all of the technology that we have with like shockproof cameras and things like that we haven't just like boxed a camera up. We can send cameras into the middle of hurricanes. So we know we have the technology. Yeah, we haven't just like thrown a camera down there and seen like what's going on.
Yeah, I have two things about this. So what I found really fascinating was when I was reading about how they think the kettle itself formed. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if either of you came across this. Is basically when water's pouring into a depression, it kind of makes a vortex, which essentially makes a water drill, and so the water is just drilling that hole out deeper and deeper, which is essentially how we got this hole.
That was kind of the theory that people were talking about, is that like it had drilled out the really hard rhyolite into a slightly less hard basalt lava tube, mm-hmm. and that was where everything was going. But I just don't. Well, again, there's no scientific evidence that.
And limestone is the rock that's notorious for being easily eroded by water.
Yeah,
but I don't.
Like
but
thousands of miles away.
But limestones, there's not. If I remember reading correctly, there's not a lot of limestone out there.
No, well, not in this area.
Yeah,
we're like a couple thousand miles away from the closest.
The thing that I think about, that I wonder about, mm-hmm. is. This thing's been there for eons, mm-hmm. and one of the things that happened in that area a long, long time ago was there was glaciers scraping along, which is part of how we have the lakes, the Great mm-hmm. Lakes. That's part of what formed them. So I almost wonder, and this is totally going on a limb, but a glacier comes through and it scrapes a giant trough out, and then there's some kind of volcanic activity that blows across the top and fills it up, and so you got a big void under the bottom. I mean, I'm totally spitballing here, but I'm just using two natural things to explain another natural thing.
Yeah, I guess,
I'm probably out in left field.
Well, my big problems with that, right, are that geologists have put a lot of thought into this thing, and I assume that one of them would have thought of that if it was a viable thing,
no.
Right?
I think that I might be the first one to come up with
it. But I also
and I might
think
be right.
that, like, if you, I guess it's like frosting a cake to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you've got this crack in your cake, and you take your frosting, and what does it do? Does it just gloss right over it, or does it fill in that crack and gloss over it?
Does it fill the entire crack?
It fills
fills the top of
I
the
would
crack?
say like 90% of it.
Well, I think we need
How many
to,
cakes have you made?
A lot.
Let's bake
Okay,
a cake.
I'll go with your judgment then.
Let's bake a cake and confirm this.
Yeah. I mean, that would just be my, and frosting is definitely more rigid than like, so if you're going to do like a glaze, it definitely fills that
Yeah,
in, which
you're
would be
right.
a more accurate comparison.
I got it.
So I guess that's,
I could see it being just going into a cave and coming out somewhere else. Because, like I said, I knew people who were cavers who explored one of these things in Guatemala. But if it's not that much of a drop to the lake, though, so I don't know.
yeah, it's just hard. It's rough. I mean, I don't know. It's,
this particular cave that they went to was amazing because the river actually went into the side of the mountain and just disappeared, and it came out the other side. So they went down in wetsuits and with just tons of rope and gears and stuff, and drove pitons into the side of the cave because there were vertical drops and then horizontal, and then they had to go vertical drops again.
well, and that's what I
and
just
then-
want people to do here, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, I really think you could solve the mystery by diverting the water and just sending some people down on ropes with wetsuits and stuff, and just go down a ways. I mean, obviously, you can't go down too far. Certainly, 80,000 feet, maybe. I don't know.
All right.
But
Shall we move on, or do you have any more on this?
No,
in
that's
your
all
review?
I have.
no, I don't know. It's just it's a mystery.
The lizard people are stealing our water again, man.
It may well
Freaking
be.
lizard people.
Oh, and before I forget, this was a listener suggestion too. Tom, right? I think it's been a while. I'm really sorry.
He suggested it a bit ago, but
Oh, anyways, thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
okay. Well, now we got mine, which
That's
I cheated.
What?
I didn't pick one hole.
I
I have
rude.
6,900 of them.
I'm sorry. How many?
We were only going to talk about 3 holes. Hello.
Yeah, well, you added that other goofy one in the beginning.
That's true.
So.
Yeah.
I stuck to my guns.
Well, to hell.
Yeah, well, I cheated. Now we have to talk about it.
No.
What I
Okay.
found is the Band of Holes in Peru,
Oh, okay. All right. I'll give you a pass on this one.
because it is just basically one giant string of holes.
Yeah.
What we've got here is, it's like I said, the Band of Holes is 6,900 uniform holes in the ground. They're in the Pisco Valley, which is on the Nazca Plateau, which is in Peru. And the Nazca Plateau, people have probably heard about it. That's where the Nazca lines are, those giant lines that are carved in the top of a plateau that when you see the satellite, you see they're like birds and weird stuff. Is it the Aztecs that people think built those?
No, the Aztecs were in Mexico. So the Inca.
Inca, thank you.
yeah.
That's who it is.
So this is in an area that's known for doing huge scale things.
Yeah, huge scale,
they were
strange
into that.
things. Yeah,
Yeah, the Incas did a lot of interesting stuff.
they did.
The holes are one of them.
They did a lot of interesting, pointless stuff. Let's put it that way.
Well, this plateau is about, to give you kind of a reference, if you look on a map in Peru, you'll find the town of Pisco. It's about 15 miles, give or take, east of Pisco is where it's at.
Is that where a Pisco Sour originated?
I don't know. Probably.
Okay.
Let's just say yes.
All right.
All right.
Somebody out there do a Google on that. We're too lazy.
So the Band of Holes extends for about a mile or so, and it runs north-south, and it runs over uneven mountain surface.
Is it approximately north-south or is it actually north-south?
It's approximate.
Okay, so
it's
it's
not.
not-
It's not an actual straight line.
Okay.
They've not a perfectly straight line.
Cool.
Unlike all the other stuff that's on the top of the
Sure.
plateau.
Sure.
The grouping of holes, because they're drilled into the ground, to use the word drilled into the ground inappropriately or incorrectly, it's a series of holes, so they can be 6 to 10 in a row next to each other. It varies between how many across.
Width-wise, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And that band of holes can be anywhere from 20 to 30 feet across, because the holes themselves are typically about 6 or 7 feet across.
Whoa.
And anywhere from 6 or 7 feet deep to just a few inches deep. Here's the weird thing about the few inches deep. I was trying to find how people determined that they were a few inches deep, and I couldn't find any solid science on it. But they look like they're crumbling and they're falling apart and they're kind of collapsing. So I think that when people say they're a few inches deep, they mean these holes have kind of filled in. So all
Okay.
that's left is a couple inch depression in the ground. In some places, the holes, like I said, they're about anywhere between 6 to 10 holes across.
Right, right.
And they're in a perfectly rigid line. So a set of holes, directly after the set of holes. Sometimes they start to break apart and they widen a little bit. So remember I said it went from 20 to 30 feet across. So they get a little irregular in their placing, and they start kind of going straight up the hill, and then they bend, and we're talking up a mountain. So they're kind of going over ridges and back and forth. If you were looking out on a map, think of it left to right, east to west, essentially. So they twist and they turn. So it's really weird that it's just this whole series of lines that just go up, and eventually they come to a saddle, is the term that I would use in the mountain. It's where two ridges or two sections come together and form that V.
Yeah.
And they stop. That's the end of them.
Maybe their tools broke. I gotta say, and I encourage all of our listeners to go out and look at the aerial satellite photos of this, because it's fascinating. It looks like a wide road from the almost.
It kind of does, except that when you get into when you start looking at the satellite imagery and you start looking at roads, they're very different, because this is a series of pockmarks, is a phrase that I would use, in the landscape of the mountain, and then a road would be nice and smooth. So
Yeah.
it's kind of strange.
Yeah, it's not really. Yeah, obviously it's not a road. It's,
They've been there so long that the indigenous people have no idea where they came from. The people who live in the region, they just, they've always been there. They've just always
That's
been
always
there.
one of the like really interesting things to me, because I feel like indigenous people are really good at coming, like they have lore surrounding things like that, right? And that like this is such a massive undertaking that had their people, their ancestors created it, had there been any kind of ownership of it in their history at all, they would have heard about it.
Yeah.
I think so.
And so it's so interesting because that means that like the people who created this are just like
They're gone.
they're gone.
Long gone. Their society's
But they don't
completely
even
gone.
have descendants.
Right.
Yeah.
That know of it anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's exactly it. They've been there for so long that just nobody knows.
Yeah,
It's
they've just been there.
There.
Yeah. So is it possible this was a quarrying operation? Maybe they were just cutting out rock to use in projects.
Well, I don't know that they would be able. I mean, think about it. It's a 6 or 7 foot across hole. So if you're cutting a pillar out, at places, this is at essentially a 45-degree angle is the mountain face. It seems like a bad place to be digging columns of rock out, and it seems like you could quarry it somewhere that's a little more accessible.
Yeah. And also, obviously, you want to quarry as close to wherever you're building your thing as possible.
Exactly.
And so there's no ruins around there, right?
Well, and that's something that we're going to get into. That is part of one of the theories that I couldn't substantiate. But we'll just take the theories from the top.
Sure. Yeah.
There's a couple, some better than others. The first one is that people have hypothesized that these were storage containers for grain.
God, that just makes exactly 0 sense.
Yeah, definitely.
You're exactly right. No capstones have ever been found, because if you're going to make a hole in the ground to store grain, you want to protect it. You got to remember the altitude that we're at. It's pretty dry, and no record of grain has ever been found in these holes. People have dug around and tried to figure it out, and there's, whatever the local grain is. It's not wheat, but let's just say if they were using wheat, you would think you would find wheat seed.
Yeah, but like, and just why?
Yeah.
Why?
Would you build a building?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like make it wider. I mean, why this like very small, very long?
Well, and you would think, because grain is being grown all over the place. If this was a typical way of storing it, then you would find these holes scattered all hither and yon. They
Yeah.
wouldn't, they wouldn't be in one place in a mile-long line.
And at the base of this mountain, it is amazing to look at the satellite imagery, because it is this barren rock face, and then suddenly lush greenery at the base.
Yeah,
where
and there's
it opens up.
There's just no good reason.
No, there's no good reason.
And you want to store your stuff in like similar climates, like not up a mountain and the bottom of a mountain. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
So then people said, well, maybe they're individual graves. to bury people in.
Oh.
Same thing with the grain. Not a single human remain has been found in any of the holes.
And so are these? Are they dug in? What's the soil like there? Is it dirt or is it
Stone.
Oh, so it's solid
it's
rock.
rock.
They carved these out of solid
Yeah,
rock.
they're carving him into a rock face. So
Yeah, I guess the only thing I would say is like ashes that could have been blown away, but it just seems like a lot.
But if I'm putting the ashes of my ancestors or the bodies of my ancestors into a hole, wouldn't I want to cover them?
Well, maybe not. I mean, different cultures have different.
That's true. There's the sky burials with
And if
vultures
this
and
is
stuff
so
like that.
old that we literally have no idea where it came from,
Yeah.
who knows what those people believed?
That's very true.
But
Say.
still a little weird.
Yeah, very. Now the next one is the next theory, even weirder. And I gotta laugh at the internet right now. So one person made mention in their article about how it looked like coring holes or pilot holes that would be done for mining to see what's in the rock and in the soil. Somebody said, and I quote, "To this Texas boy, it looks like what a drilling rig would do." I do laugh at the internet because that really made it hard for me to find new information because every site I started doing a find on for the words Texas boy because there was a lot of prodigious copying and pasting on the
Of
internet.
course,
Always,
yeah.
I know.
But people are saying, well, maybe it's an alien civilization that came to this planet at one time and they were doing samples up the mountain to see if there was anything in the rock that they wanted to use and then they found nothing and they
Well,
left.
Either that, or they finally found something useful, and then they mined it out and carefully covered it back up.
I guess, yeah, my problem with that is that, like, they would have done that other places, too.
They would have done it
right?
all over the place, and not just in that one spot.
And that's a
Yeah.
huge sample size. Like, okay, to be fair, I don't know how giant these alien rigs were, right? But, like, that's a huge sample site. Just be going up, and, like, it's not like the dirt is going to change in, like, the 4 feet in between.
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
drilling.
Therein lies the rub.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those first three theories, yeah, they're pretty well kicked off.
Okay.
Okay, the next one says that it was created by an ancient civilization,
Okay, yes.
but for what we don't know,
Uh-huh.
and here's why. Everyone loves to point out when they are looking at it that we've got the Nazca Peninsula and we've got Machu Picchu, which is relatively close to this area.
How far is Machu Picchu from there?
I don't know exactly, but I'm just saying in the region. They're
Peru isn't,
close.
like, the hugest of the areas.
No, it's not. It's not a vast. country,
Let's just,
but it's-
I don't know how many miles, but let's not worry about that. But there was a lot of really intricate building going on at that time. And one of the things that people point out is, you remember that, and I know I showed you too, and everybody who looks at the satellite images, that saddle where the band of holes suddenly ends.
Yeah.
yeah.
To me, in the imagery, I couldn't tell if it was just rock outcroppings or it almost looked like there was some spots of sections of holes. But this outcropping, the saddle, almost looks like a slump of the mountain came down and
Yeah, like a
covered
little
it.
avalanche or something.
Right.
Yeah.
There are images out there where people will say, look at this piece of rock. It looks blackened, this section of rock, which is hundreds of feet across. And they're saying it looks blackened as if there was an explosion.
Or maybe alien landing site, and they just burned it with their rockets.
Right.
Yeah.
So I showed you two.
Yeah.
There's no blackening. I'm using air quotes here. Blackening of the soil. I'm afraid I think that's actually a little bit of photoshopping.
Yeah.
I think maybe somebody did some contrast adjustments and just made it look what they wanted to look like. But they're also, in those same articles, there's another image they show of these blocky, ruinous structures. It looks like blocky, ruinous structures in kind of ravines or carve-outs in the mountain. I couldn't find that. I looked around. I looked all in that area. I spent probably an hour combing across the map. I couldn't find it. But people say, well, based on the blackening and this ruined city that we find, we think that it's the same culture that built Machu Picchu and the Nazca lines. But I can't find any of that. I don't even know if that's in the same area or how zoomed in somebody was. It really raises a lot of red flags for me.
Did you do any looking for archaeological sites in Peru? See if any of the, because I mean, obviously these things, if there were ruins, they would be known.
Yeah, and that was exactly it. I couldn't find it. I couldn't find it as I looked around. I'm afraid that I think that, because here's what would happen is people would show that image of this supposed ruin site and then Machu Picchu. And they would show how the structures, the squares, the buildings, and the stones were kind of similar, but I could never find them. I mean, I don't know if it's not invention.
Probably.
Finding what you want to find by zooming in close enough.
Yeah.
I'm not going to point a finger and say somebody's outright lying, but I couldn't find it to back it up.
Yeah.
So I worry about that this whole, it was a city by an alien civilization that then was bombed out.
Or an ancient civilization, which I read a really interesting article recently, which I will definitely be talking about with you guys at least, and hopefully we'll be able to formulate a show out of it about this whole ancient civilization, ancient aliens. Kind of, but it was very, very interesting. But, I mean, we've talked about this before, and I'm sure we will continue to talk about the fact that there's strong proof of highly intelligent ancient cultures.
Oh, yeah. Even
absolutely.
in North America, there's the Clovis culture. There's cultures that we hardly have any record of at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there was a sophisticated civilization going back a long, long time.
And they're just so old that we don't have good civilization. But I think that this sort of thing really degrades that argument. It's looking for some stuff that doesn't exist, and it always makes me really sad when people try and make these claims, because it's like you're really just weakening the argument.
Yeah.
Because you're just looking for whatever. And of course, like a satellite image, you zoom in enough, it's going to get pixelated enough. You're going to be like, oh, look, totally rock outcropping, like square buildings. No, it's pixels. Calm down.
Could be. Yeah.
But also it could not be. But
there is one, I don't know that I would say theory, but a fable that supposedly explains the Band of Holes. And I can't find anywhere that says that this fable is in X record or Y record. I can't lock it in to where it came from. But there is a fable that people say explains why the holes are there, and maybe it is from the indigenous people. But Devin, if you don't mind, could you read the fable for us? It's a quick one.
I can read it. Okay, everybody ready for story time?
Let's hear it.
Story time. Thousands of years ago, in a valley in a place that we now call Peru, there lived a large community of nymphs. For a long time, they lived happily among the trees and rivers until one year there was a drought. The rivers started to dry up and the trees began to die. The nymphs knew that they had to make an offering to the rain god, and they knew what he loved the most was the music. What they couldn't figure out was how to get the music on the earth to reach the skies above where the rain god lived. They tried singing, but their voices were not loud enough, and neither were their musical instruments. They tried making bigger and louder instruments, but nothing worked. Finally, one young nymph had an idea. She began digging a big hole in the ground, and once she was finished, she stretched several long reeds tightly over the surface. When she plucked the reeds, the sound produced was louder and more magical than any of the other musical instruments in the world. All the other nymphs followed her lead, and within a few hours, the whole valley was covered in large holes, reeds stretched over their surfaces. The nymphs began to play their new instruments together, and for hours and hours they produced one beautiful melody after another, till the music reached all the way up into the skies. At last, the rains came, and they lived once again in peace. To this day, the large holes can be seen in the Pisco Valley in Peru.
Wow.
And evidently the moral of that story is creativity can help you through a tough challenge.
I guess so. So, has anybody ever tried to replicate that by stretching large reeds over the holes and seeing if they could play music?
Just like jumping on in the holes, stretching lingeries over and seeing if they could do it.
Yeah.
Not that I know of. No. But basically, I mean, that's as far as it goes. We don't know. I mean, they're there a mile or a couple of miles long. This band of holes. It meanders up a mountain until it disappears, and we have no idea why they're there.
You know,
Man.
it seems like the people in that area seem to like to create stuff that would be visible to, from the eye of God, like the Nazca Lines. All those things that they did.
Right, the men and the birds
and all that stuff.
Mysterious creatures.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, they created those because they wanted to, create this piece of art that God could see up in heaven. And so this might be kind of in line with the same sort of thing, is that they wanted to create something that would be visible from heaven.
And maybe this was their first attempt at it, and they realized that the series of holes, it's like stippling in art. You do a series of dots, and
It
then you
does
do
look like
another series
stippling.
of dots, and
Yeah.
it kind of looks like that, but maybe they figured out that is way too much effort rather than just digging a shallow trench and filling it with something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah, this one's a head scratcher.
It kind of is.
And you guys know me well enough to know that I always have like a theory that I really like. Mm-hmm. But
Yeah, one of the other interesting things about it is when you look at those things through the satellite photographs, is that they go along in these perfect rows, and then they'll stop, and there'll be a break, and not too huge of a break, but it's very visible from
Let's
space.
say a one line of holes
Yeah.
is
or a couple
missing.
lines.
Yeah, a couple lines of holes are missing, and then they start up again, and they keep going, and that's kind of a mysterious thing.
Yeah, it's obviously weird, but
It is a weird.
But that,
thing.
ladies and gentlemen, is the whole story.
Ah!
I've been hanging on to that all week.
Yeah. So, but have they dug down any deeper to see if there's anything underneath these things?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't think that they've actually dug down deeper than the holes. I imagine that they're kind of a protected site, and they just don't let regular old yahoos hop in there with a shovel
Yeah.
and start
Weird.
digging.
I mean, okay, regular old yahoos, but like, how is
Us,
this?
we're regular old yahoos. I think so. Yeah.
I think so.
I don't know. It's just, yeah.
If I were an archaeologist, I'd want to go down there and do some digging, or at least go down there with a metal detector, maybe some ground penetrating radar, stuff like that, and see what you can figure out.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of this particular series for the show. I hope you liked 3 in a row. Let us know what your thoughts
Plus
are.
the bonus hole.
Yeah, if you like them. Now, all the information about these stories will be on the website. That website, as always, is thinkingsidewayspodcast.com. You can listen to the show there, or you can go ahead and leave a comment if you want to talk to us about stuff. You can always find our shows on Stitcher, so if you didn't get a chance to download it, you can just stream it right off of any mobile device. We're also on Facebook, so we've got our Facebook page, so you can find us and like us. We've also got the group, which still doesn't have a lot of activity, but it's there if folks want to chat. And of course, if you want to go ahead and send us an email, please by all means do. Email address is thinkingsidewayspodcast@gmail.com. Obviously, two of tonight's stories came out of listener suggestions, which is fantastic. And is there anything else that I've been missing?
I feel like we have some listener mail.
Well, I haven't seen any emails that have backed up.
Oh, well, okay, I'm sorry. We have a iTunes review that I really liked that I wanted to read.
Oh, I haven't been on. I haven't looked at iTunes in a while.
Oh, well, I'll read it. That's fine. Fine. Okay. So, as you know, being an iTunes review, it's like pretty anonymous, right? But it's titled Overheard Conversations at McMenamins. It says, if you've ever finished off a Ruby in the setting Portland Sun, you may have heard the perky, educated female, the excitable hipster, and the more laid-back older gentleman conversing intelligently on numerous subjects while having a good time. This podcast hits it all. I've been a long-time Mysterious Universe listener, and Thinking Sideways hits those subjects while feeling like you just walked in on your old friends talking. Enjoyable, friendly, and a wide range of topics. Which I love this. I think, like, not only this person is, like, from our area, obviously.
Sounds like, yeah. Yeah.
Right? He's calling me perky and educated, which I love.
Is this a guy or a girl? Or
I don't know. I can't tell. I don't know. I just assume he on the internet.
I automatically assume she, but I guess
Okay.
it's just, yeah.
Anyway, so this person is calling me
whoever you
perky and
are, guy, girl.
educated.
Yeah.
So, and I just what?
Okay, so you're the educated young lady,
Perky and educated.
and Joe is
The older, laid back older gentleman. Oh.
So that leaves me, the excitable hipster.
Well,
Okay, all right. So
You can bring PBR.
I admit that I'm excitable, and I wear cool hats.
And you're a graphic
but I've been
designer.
doing that since before it was cool. But
Yeah.
oh crap!
and you drink PBR,
I do.
But you don't
and you're
wear
a graphic designer.
you don't wear skinny pants, though.
No, I don't wear
That's-
skinny jeans.
that's
so,
true.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I do. That is a great review, and I really enjoy that.
Yeah.
That's for anybody who knows Portland or McMinimans. That is a spot on description of what I guess this show is.
I guess so.
The person who wrote that, thank you very much.
I guess
nice.
that's
fantastic.
Appreciate it.
That's right. You were saying at the top of the show that people were asking for a description of what we are. Boom.
I don't know that I'm going to go around saying I'm an excitable hipster.
Well-
I'm just going to say.
You are.
And I'm not older, and I'm not really a gentleman.
Well. All right. I guess the description applies to me and me only.
yeah.
All right. Perky, educated young lady.
That's me.
There we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, that is the end of what we've got. Do let us know, though, if you like today's show, if you like having a number of smaller stories packed into one episode. We like to try these things out, so let us know what you think.
Yeah.
That having been said, we're going to call it a night, so thanks a lot. We'll talk to you next week.
Toodaloo.
It's the lizard people, I'm telling you, stealing our water.
No doubt.
Stupid lizard people. Thinking Sideways is not brought to you by Bigfoot riding a unicorn. Instead, it's brought to you by Simply Safe. As much as we love investigating various crimes, the last thing anyone wants to encounter is crime firsthand. Now, there's a smarter way to protect your home with Simply Safe. Simply Safe doesn't have annual contracts, so there's no commitment and no lock-ins, period. And best of all, with Simply Safe, you get 24/7 protection with professional monitoring and police dispatch, which is just $15 a month. It's unbeatable protection at a great value and no strings attached. So protect your home the smart way. Visit simplysafe.com/criminal to get 10% off your system today. That's SIMPLI safe.com/criminal.
Thinking Sideways.
I don't get it.
I brought the aliens. You must unlearn what you have learned.
I don't know. Stories of things we simply don't know the answer to.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Thinking Sideways, the podcast. I am Devin, joined as usual by
Joe.
and
Steve.
the boys.
Yay!
The man. Watch it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All
Okay,
right.
yeah.
The dudes, maybe.
I act
All
like
right.
a little boy. It's okay.
You do, it's true.
I'm 12.
This week we're going to talk about the Indiana Dunes disappearance, and it was suggested by Francesca,
Hey, thanks, Francesca.
but it's one that I personally have known about for a really long time. She just happened to suggest it too.
There you
So,
go.
and then other people have suggested it since then.
Oh,
Well,
sorry
always.
about that. Yeah, you might feel left out, but
Yeah.
we read your emails, I swear.
Yeah. So this disappearance includes 3 women. You'll often see girls, but they weren't girls. They were young women, and they were named Ann Miller, Patricia Blau, and Renee Broll in July of 1966.
It's like 50 years ago, man.
Yeah. And oddly, all 3 of their Charlie Project pages are different.
Slightly different. They're
different.
actually all cut and pasted and then modified.
Yeah, they are, but it's still kind of weird because they disappeared together, so it seems like the information.
It should be first
should-
paragraph is unique to end, last paragraph should,
Maybe.
the body should be the same, but it's not. I
Yeah.
agree.
No, they
It's
should
just
kind of.
weird in there. Yeah.
they should all actually have to have just one page, I think.
Well, they're
No,
3
That's not
different
the way Charlie works.
missing
Yeah, I suppose.
women. So we're gonna go ahead and go through the agreed upon story, and we'll try to make mention of any additional details as we can to keep the story flowing.
I don't want to give anything away, but what happened to these three?
To be determined.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So Anne, Renee, and Patricia, who I've seen referred to as Patty on a couple blogs, but I think she was Patricia. I don't think she was Patty.
Patty is a nickname for Patricia.
I mean,
Yeah.
I know, but I think she went by Patricia, not Patty. But who knows?
I couldn't say.
I saw a webpage that said she went by Pat and Patty.
Yeah.
And so...
Anyway, we're going to call her Patricia.
All right.
The three of these young women were horse enthusiasts. Anne and Patricia met when they were boarding their horses at the same stable, and then Patricia and Renee had been friends since high school. Patricia was 19 in 1966, and so was Renee. They had gone to high school together, so, that makes sense. And then Anne was 21, so a couple years older. They often met at a tavern in Hodgkins, Illinois, which
Is that like a suburb of Chicago? or
it's
what?
one of many suburbs. So they all lived in suburbs of Chicago,
Yes.
or actually, I think Renee lived in West Chicago, but they all lived in suburbs, and so Hodgkins would have actually been a pretty central meeting point for them.
And it was close to the stables.
It was
that they
close
went
to the stables as well, yeah. Renee was married. Patricia and Anne both had boyfriends that they may or may not have met at the tavern, and also the men may or may not have been married. I promise.
So when you say boyfriends that they met, they met these guys for the first time at the tavern, not they had boyfriends who would also meet all of the girls.
Yeah, that they first met at the tavern.
Okay, I the way it came out, I was like, wait a minute.
No, yeah. Yeah, sorry. So they maybe met these maybe married men who were their boyfriends, respectively. But it's unclear if these guys were married or not.
Always a great choice.
Always.
You always want the married dude.
Yeah, well, especially when you're 19 and 21. That's really when you want the married dude.
Good choices.
Yeah. The women all stabled and rode their horses at a stable called the Tricolor Stable in Palatine, Illinois, which was owned by George Jane, brother to Silas Jane, and we will talk about that later.
The Brothers Jane.
I know you guys love it when I say that. We will talk about that later if you happen to have just had your ears peaked a little bit.
Yeah.
It's possible that you don't, so
There's
that's
a lot
okay.
of
Don't worry
information
about it.
Silas out there.
Yeah, there is. Patricia, aside from riding, just having the riding horse that she had, she also owned a thoroughbred named Hank, which I think is a pretty cool name for a horse, who was a winning racehorse. He had recently won 2 separate races that won about $900 a piece, which is like almost $7,000 now. So not nothing. I
And those
mean, not
races
like
were up in Canada.
yeah, both of those races were up in Canada.
So Canadian dollars, so much lower. Yeah.
I think it was American dollars. But yeah, so this will again probably be relevant later, but we'll talk about that later because I know you guys like to hear that. On July 2nd, 1966, in the wee hours of the morning, Anne and Patricia returned to their respective homes.
Like right after bar closing time.
Like 2 or 3 a.m. It's never really specified, but it is said that they returned home very late.
Yeah, I've heard it said just before dawn.
It's
I have
possible.
no idea if that was true or not.
Then around 8 a.m., Anne sets out to pick Patricia back up from Patricia's house. Anne owns a car. I think it was a Buick,
1955.
1955 Buick. And Anne lived in Lombard.